last 3.5 years, as voters in this country have voted repeatedly at every electoral opportunity they have had for parties in favour of remaining in the European Union. And for those of you who follow the opinion polls, you will have seen that earlier this week, support for remaining in the European Union in Scotland was at 73%. Now, I'm very proud that it was Scottish parliamentarians like myself and Alan Smith who led the fight against Brexit. And I'm very proud that my colleagues, such as Mike Russell and the First Minister in the Scottish Government, have stood up for the rights of EU citizens when they were being disrespected and threatened by the British government. I am particularly proud to have been part of the teams that on 2 occasions, not just one, but 2 occasions, beat the British government in the highest court in Europe and the highest court in the UK. So my message to you tonight is, do not be despondent. There is hope. There is hope for Scotland's future and hope for Scotland's future in Europe. I could be very negative and I could say, as is correct, this is not our Brexit. No. It's been something that's been done to us rather than done by us. It's been forced on us against our will. And I could say, as is correct, no good can come of Brexit for Scotland's society or economy. And losing freedom of movement won't affect just our economy, but it will make our society and our culture less diverse and less rich. And of course, as the First Minister said this morning, the impact of Brexit will be felt most by those least able to bear it. Now, of course, all of that is true, but the good news is that this truly is a pivotal moment in Scotland's history. Now, I spent a lot of time towards the end of last year knocking on doors in my constituency of Edinburgh South West, trying to persuade people to re-elect me with some success, I'm glad to say. And I sensed a real change of mood on behalf of voters in my constituency, and a real change of attitude in no voters, people who voted no to independence in 2014. So yes, we're sad, yes, we're angry, yes, in my case, I am deeply irritated by the way that Brexit is being done to my country without its permission. But there is hope, but to realise that hope will require courage, because the fact of the matter is that the only way back into the European Union for Scotland is if we regain our statehood and regain our independence. Because only by doing that can we ensure that we are in charge of our country's destiny. If the last 3.5 years since the Brexit vote in England have taught us anything, they've taught us the limitations of devolution, and that devolution is not enough to prevent our country, our society, our economy and our culture suffering the damage of Brexit. Now, it is quite clear that the Scottish Government have a mandate to hold another independence referendum. Both from the people who voted in previous elections and as a result of the vote in our Parliament behind you yesterday afternoon. And it was very pleasing yesterday to see an opinion poll from YouGov putting independence in the lead for the first time in a YouGov poll since 2015. And today I was pleased to hear the First Minister mention in her statement proposals to increase support for independence and to bring with us those who are not yet convinced. And I very much welcome the recognition of the requirement for a constitutional convention to reach out beyond the political parties, I hope, to civic society and the people of this great country. And I also welcome the First Minister's recognition that it is by no means clear that the Parliament behind us doesn't have the means to hold an advisory referendum. And I'm looking forward to discussing that with the First Minister in due course. How independence will come about is not as yet clear, and a degree of patience will be required, and we must put our faith in the leadership of the country and our First Minister, who is the leader of the country. But we must also remember, always, and we must reiterate, that this is not our Brexit. This is not Scotland's Brexit. And we must contrast the way in which the Republic of Ireland is treated by the European Union with the way in which Scotland is treated in the United Kingdom. And because of the situation in which we now find ourselves, those politicians who say that we should stop talking about independence and get on with the day job are wrong. Of course we must get on with the day job, but we must also get on with protecting our country from Brexit, because it didn't vote for it and it's bad for it. And so, to talk about independence and to advance the cause for independence is the constitutionally responsible thing to do. Now, in relation to Boris Johnson, who seems to think that he can turn his face against the tide of Scottish public opinion, I would say to him that his intransigence is doomed, and indeed history shows that such intransigence doesn't work. And I would simply end by quoting the words of the great Irish constitutional nationalist Charles Stewart Parnell. And in his words, I would say to Boris Johnson, no man has the right to set the boundaries of the march of a nation. Thank you.